Hello everyone, my name is Shomik Hajra and I am from Birbhum, West Bengal. I have completed my MSc in Botany and recently submitted my PhD thesis from Vishwabharati University, Shantiniketan. Regarding my teaching experience, I have taught students of class 11 and 12 for their board as well as NEET exam preparation at local coaching institute and as a home tutor for past 2 years. So, the topic that we are going to learn today is a very important chapter from your class 11 NCERT book and chapter 6 Anatomy of Flowering Plant, and the topic of concern today is secondary growth in dicot stem. So the things that we are going to learn today are: what is secondary growth, what is lateral meristem, what is vascular cambium and their function, and what is cough cambium and its detailed function. Okay, now before we are going to learn about secondary growth, we have to learn about the primary growth. So what is primary growth? We all know that plant increases in length. The seedlings are so small, then the mature tree grows up to 10 meter, 20 meter, 30 meters. It can grow up to 60 meter, as we can see in eucalyptus trees. So plants increases in length. Plant increases in length. So the meristematic tissue which are responsible for the increase of length in a plant are called, yes, you are right, are called apical meristems. So the apical meristem responsible for the increase of length. So from apical, what we can understand, as it is apical means it will be situated at the apex. So whose apex it will be situated at? It will be situated at the apex of shoot and the root. Okay, it will be situated at the apex of shoot and apex of the root. It will provide primary tissues and it will cause increase in the length. So here we are concerned about the stem. So draw a portion of the stem. Okay, so this is the shoot apex or the stem apex. Here will be apical meristem. Here will be apical meristem. Okay, it will give rise to the various tissues, various primary tissues. So it is a type of primary meristem. Okay, now there is another type of meristem which appears between two permanent tissue zones, which is called intercalary meristem. It is not our topic of discussion today. Okay, so here comes the topic of discussion, the start of today's class, which is the lateral meristem. As per NCERT, the lateral meristem appears at the mature portion of the shoot or the root. Here we are discussing about the stem. So mature portion of the shoot, and it produces woody axis. Means it produces secondary tissue which will increases the diameter of the stem. We have seen Ficus bengalensis plant. Okay, the diameter of the plants are so huge. Okay, so which is causing that increase in the diameter or increase in the girth of the plant to support its huge structure. It is called the lateral meristem. So this meristem appear laterally at the mature shoot and root portion and gives woody axis is called lateral meristem. Okay, so from lateral, here is a word we can derive late. As it appears later than the primary meristem in a plant life, it is called secondary meristem. It is called secondary meristem. Okay, clear? So that meristematic tissue which is responsible for the increase of diameter of the plant stem or the secondary growth is called lateral meristem, and it is a type of secondary meristems as it appears later than the primary meristem or primary plant body in a plant life. Okay, it will produce secondary tissue. It will produce secondary tissue. Okay, so up to that it is clear. So we know about the lateral meristem. So the secondary meristem, the secondary meristem is of two types. It's of two types in stem. Okay, is of two types. What are they? First one is the vascular cambium, and the second one is the cork cambium. We will learn about them now. Okay, so secondary meristem are of two types. One is vascular cambium, another one is cork cambium. Okay, so let's learn about some vascular cambium. Before I am going to tell you about the vascular cambium, I want you to remember a certain sentence which will help you to understand the concept of vascular cambium so easily. So, the dicot stem will go to gym and uses cambium ring as dumbbell. So it goes to the gym, the dicot stem goes to the gym and uses cambium ring as dumbbell, and it gain xylem muscle inside and phloem fat outside. If you remember this line, all the things about the secondary growth from vascular cambium will be clear to you. So let's dig deeper into this. So if you remember the characteristics of vascular bundle in a dicot stem, we will remember that it is of conjoint and open type. It is of conjoint and open type. What does it mean? Means if this is a vascular bundle, so outside there will be phloem tissue, inside there will be xylem tissues, index xylem, and between xylem and phloem there will be strip of cambium. So conjoint means, what does conjoint means? Conjoint means the xylem and phloem will be on same radius. Okay, and open type means a strip of cambium present between xylem and phloem. It is very important to remember to understand the secondary growth. Okay, now we will look into the secondary growth. All the necessary introduction has been completed. I have not removing it because it will help you to understand. So we all know that in dicot plants the vascular bundle are arranged in ring as opposed to the monocot stem where the vascular bundle are scattered. So it is a dicot stem. Okay, so in dicot stem, suppose this is the epidermis, which is followed by the cortex layer, then the vascular bundle are arranged in a ring form. Okay, in the vascular bundle between xylem and phloem, what will be there? There will be cambium. Okay, there will be cambium. These cambiums are known as intravesicular cambium. Okay, intra means inside. Okay, now there is a chapter called plant growth and development where we learn about the thing dedifferentiation. What is dedifferentiation? A tissue which is differentiated. What does it mean by differentiated? That it lost its capacity to divide and assume or gain a particular characteristic to perform a particular function. Okay, this is differentiated tissue. This differentiated tissue which lost its capacity to divide will regain their capacity to divide, and form tissues, and form another tissues is called dedifferentiation. We know that between the vascular bundle there are some parenchymatous cells. So what is this portion is called? This portion is called medullary rays. So some parenchymatous cells between the vascular bundle will be dedifferentiated. This is neat PYQ. How does intervesicular cambium forms? By dedifferentiation of cells of parenchymatous cells of medullary rays. So some parenchymatous cells of medullary rays present between the vascular bundle will get dedifferentiated and regain their capacity to divide and form a strip of cambium which joined with intravesicular cambium, and this cambium is known as intervesicular cambium. So inter means in between. So how you remember? Intra means inside, inter means in between two vascular bundle. Okay, so these two collectively called cambium ring. Okay, so dicot stem will go to the gym and uses cambium ring as dumbbell. So the dumbbell is ready. Now it's time to build up some muscle and fat. Okay, now the cambium ring will cut off cells in both the directions. It has bifacial activity in both directions. On the inner side it will produce secondary xylem. So this type of secondary xylem is produced. Okay, on the outer side it will produce secondary phloem. like this. From the inner side, what will be produced? It will produce secondary xylem. On the outer side, it will produce secondary phloem. Okay. Now I am drawing a good picture. Okay, to help you understand better. So suppose this is the cambium ring. Okay, so this is the xylem. This is the phloem. And this is the epidermis. So what are these? What are these? So the cambium has bifacial activity. It will produce secondary phloem towards the periphery and secondary xylem to the inner side. So this is secondary phloem. This is secondary xylem and this is cambium ring. But the activity of the cambium ring is much higher in the inner side. So what we need in our body? We need muscle or we need fat? We need muscle. So it will get xylem muscle. It will get xylem muscle to the inner side. So muscles are more, so xylems are more, and to the outside it will produce phloem. It will produce phloem. But the amount of secondary xylem will be much greater than the amount of secondary phloem. So what happened to the primary xylem and primary phloem? The primary phloem will get crushed due to continuous production of the secondary phloem. Due to continuous production of the secondary phloem, it will be crushed and it remain as a remnant. It remains as a remnant. So what is it? It is primary phloem. Okay, and the primary xylem will remain at the center of the stem more or less intact. So it is primary xylem. Okay, now if question comes, what is the tissue organization from periphery to the center in a stem which is grown by secondary growth? So the answer will be at the most outer side there will be primary phloem, then there will be secondary phloem, then there will be secondary xylem, then there will be primary xylem. Okay, it may come from periphery to the center. It will first produce primary phloem, there will be secondary phloem, there will be secondary xylem, and there will be primary xylem. Okay, so dicot stem will go to the gym and uses cambium ring as dumbbell. It gains xylem muscle inside and phloem fat outside. Clear? Now some portion of the cambium ring will produce parenchymatous tissue. Some portion of the cambium ring will produce parenchymatous tissue, and this parenchymatous tissue traverses the secondary xylem and secondary phloem radially. So some parenchymatous tissues are there. These tissues are called medullary rays. What is this called? Medullary rays. These are of parenchymatous in nature. Okay, so the vascular cambium is completed. Now we see if there is continuous production of the secondary xylem and secondary phloem, the cortex here and the epidermis will get pressurized and it may be crushed. Okay, so there will be continuous production. It will push towards the periphery. The cortex and the epidermis may get crushed. So there is a need of another protective layer. What will be that protective layer? That protective layer will be our last topic, which is cork cambium. So let's go into the cork cambium. So at the outer side there will be rectangular compactly arranged cell in, called epidermal cells or the epidermis, and there will be parenchymatous cells forming the cortex, and there comes the secondary phloem which will pressurize them and can break them. So plant needs another protective layer. So from where this another protective layer will form? It will form by cock cambium. So the cock cambium will develop. How the cock cambium will develop? Again the dedifferentiation. Some cells of the cortical tissue, some parenchymatous cells. Just to draw some parenchymatous cells here. So suppose these cells of the parenchymatous tissues of the parenchymatous cells of cortical zone will get dedifferentiated. Suppose these cells are dedifferentiated. Suppose these cells are dedifferentiated. So cortical cell will dedifferentiated and form. What they will form? They will form and layer one or two layer of narrow elongated cell which are called cock cambium, or phelogen, cock cambium or phelogen. Huh? This cambium also has bifacial activity, means it will cut off cells in two directions. Okay, so at the outside they will produce cells named cock cells or phloem cells, So these are phloem cells or cock cells, popularly known as cock cells. These are impervious to water because it has suberin deposition. Okay, so the cock cambium will produce towards the periphery phloem cells or cock cells which have suberin deposition, which is impervious to water. The cock that we used at some medicinal bottles, that cock, okay, that cock is produced by this cock cambium. Okay, so the cock will be produced by the cock cambium towards the periphery, and towards the inner side it will produce radially elongated cell called phelodam or secondary cortex. Clear? So on the outer side they will produce cock cells, on the inner side they will produce phelodam cells. So what will follow this phelodam cell? Remember, most towards the periphery, first vascular tissue is secondary phloem. It will produce, then it will be followed by secondary phloem cell. So secondary phloem cells. Then there will be cambium. Okay. So all the tissues outside the vascular cambium is called, are called bark. So these four tissues will make the bark, and the phloem cells or the cock cells plus phelogen and or cock cambium cells plus phelodam cells. These three combined we called peridam. It is nucleoid. The peridam is composed of phelodam cell or the secondary cortex, phelogen or cock cambium, or phloem cell or cock cells. Okay, so all four topics have been covered. So secondary growth is done by lateral meristem, which appears at the mature portion of the shoot and root and increases the length as it appears later than the primary meristem. It is called secondary meristem. Okay, it involves in secondary growth. So the cock cambium will be produced by dedifferentiation. The cock cambium will be produced by dedifferentiation of parenchymatous tissue present in the medullary rays, and by dedifferentiation it will be formed interfascicular cambium, and intrafascicular cambium is already present between the vascular bundle. These two will combine and form the cambium ring. It will cut off cells in two directions, and on the towards the periphery it will produce secondary phloem, towards the center it will produce secondary xylem. The amount of secondary xylem will be much higher than the secondary phloem. Okay, now some portion of the cambium will produce parenchymatous tissue, some portion of the cambium will produce parenchymatous tissue, easy. And that will traverse through the secondary xylem and phloem. It will call medullary rays. Now the cock cambium is produced by dedifferentiation of cortical cells. It will produce phelogen layer of the cock cambium layer. On the outside it will produce the phloem cells or the cock cells, which are impervious to water because the deposition of suberin. Okay, on the inner side it will produce phelodome cell or secondary cortex. Okay, now this is the topic. Please go through it in the book. If any problem arises, contact me. Thank you so much.